Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, what's sustainable from the Timberwolves blowout win in Game 1 and what adjustments we can expect the Lakers to make in Game 2. It's all coming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy game day. It's Game 2 in LA tonight. Today, we're going to talk about what the Wolves did right in Game 1 that is absolutely sustainable, or at least it should be sustainable moving forward. And we'll also talk about what sort of adjustments we can expect the Lakers to make and how the Timberwolves may be able to counter those. Can they anticipate the adjustments that JJ Redick and the Lakers will make? We'll talk about all that on the show here today to get you ready for tonight's Game 2. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder about the Locked On Wolves newsletter. You can subscribe at lockedondaily.com. You get an email newsletter to your inbox every day, Monday through Friday. All things Wolves, all things NBA. Plenty of great notes from this show, as well as from around the Wolves, blogosphere, around Wolves news on the internet. You'll get all that included in your email newsletter. Again, subscribe at lockedondaily.com. All right. So Timberwolves win Game 1 by 22 points. Undoubtedly, by now, you've listened to several podcasts, read many articles, watched all sorts of pundits on TV declare the Lakers are in trouble or the Wolves were lucky or whatever take you found out there. It's all out there, of course, as always. The Timberwolves are underdogs for Game 2, but they are favorites for the series now after winning Game 1 and taking home court advantage from the Lakers. But at FanDuel, the Timberwolves are, I believe, 4.5-point underdogs for Tuesday night's game. And that's not a shock, right? You'd expect the Lakers. I mean, they got embarrassed on their home floor in Game 1. So it shouldn't be shocking to expect them to play, it shouldn't be a shock if we would expect them to play, or better way to say this, we can't expect them to play much better, at least play harder in Game 2. And that, by the way, is one of those things that I would like today. I want to talk about what's sustainable and what's LA going to adjust. Something that is both sustainable and something that's fixable for the Lakers is effort. If the Timberwolves continue to play with the effort that they played with, the physicality they played with, and how hard they played, the Lakers should be better in all of those areas in this game, because they couldn't really be much worse for a playoff Game 1. But the Wolves don't have to be worse either, right? Like, they could keep playing at that level, and that's an area where they should never have a disadvantage against LA. I'm lumping all those things together, playing hard, but also the physicality, the athleticism. And actually that's my first thing about what's sustainable. And I mentioned this briefly on Monday's show, but what stood out to me and what I think I underestimated coming into this series, and if this is your first show in a while, you haven't listened before, you missed the last couple, I did pick the Lakers to win this series in 6. I picked the Wolves to win Game 1. I picked the Lakers to win the series in 6. Am I regretting that pick now? Yeah, I mean, I hoped I was wrong in the first place, but I was concerned about the Lakers having 3 of the best 4 players in the series. I was concerned about Luka doing Luka things and how much the Wolves have struggled to guard Luka Doncic, to date, really, especially obviously in the Western Conference Finals last year, and he's with Dallas. But I'm not gonna immediately after one game go all the way back on my prediction. But what I did underestimate, what I did miss on, is just how much more athletic and how much more, we'll call it usable size, which is a weird way to say that. Impactful size the Wolves have. Impactful size, the athleticism. Obviously, they have the youth in this matchup over the Lakers. And that's not to say the Lakers have a massive experience advantage. Obviously, LeBron's very experienced. But, and Luka's been to the finals. But Luka's not exactly, he's not old. And the Lakers don't have, actually, beyond LeBron, that many old guys, right? Like, it's not that old of a team. The Wolves just feel more youthful because they are more athletic and they are bigger 1 through 8. Each team has one kind of undersized guy in the rotation. Gabe Vincent for the Lakers, Mike Conley for the Wolves. But the Lakers don't have a Rudy size big this side of Jackson Hayes, who played 8 minutes in game one. They don't have a Nas size big. I know he's not that much bigger than Rui Hachimura, but Rui Hachimura doesn't play like a 5. Nas can play like a 5. Defensively, Nas is better. And by the way, still, if you listen to a lot of the national shows, a lot of people are still underselling how good Nas can be defensively. He's had some good possessions against Luka in the past. He can hold his own at times against LeBron. He's long, he's athletic. He's a pretty good weak side shot blocker, even if he's not a traditional 5 rim protector in the same vein as Rudy Gobert. But the point is, the Lakers don't have this 1 through 8 size, rotation size like the Wolves have. They don't have this length. They don't have the youthful athleticism that the Wolves have. And you look at the Lakers rotation, like obviously LeBron's big. LeBron's a big dude, but he's a little bit kind of sort of canceled out in that department by a Julius Randle. Rui Hachimura isn't bigger than Nas Reid. Jackson Hayes is not as good as Rudy Gobert. Austin Reeves isn't very big, and he's not ultra athletic compared to some of the Wolves. He's not as athletic as a Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's not as athletic as a, obviously Ant. You could go Jade McDaniels. You could even go Dante DiVincenzo, right? Like, I don't know that he's necessarily a better athlete than any of those guys. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's not. And he's not any bigger than any of them. The only guy he's bigger than is Mike Conley. Dorian Finney-Smith doesn't have the combination of size and athleticism that the Wolves wings do. Jared Vanderbilt's a good player, but he doesn't have functional athleticism on the offensive end of the floor like everyone the Wolves run out there does. Everyone in the Wolves' top 8 can hurt you in some way offensively. No, Mike Conley's not going to kill you off the dribble, but he can make an open 3. No, Nickeil Alexander-Walker isn't going to drive your offense, but he can make an open 3, and he's pretty athletic. He can hurt you in transition. So the combination of functional size and athleticism that the Timberwolves have, I underestimated that in this series. And that alone, combine that with just playing harder and playing smarter than the Lakers and really wanting it more than the Lakers, that matters. The want to combined with the athleticism advantage is a real thing. And the Lakers just didn't have that, they just looked slow in this game. And we talked about this at length. We'll talk a little bit more about it here in a minute too. Actually, no, we can talk about it now. Running in transition. Like, this is another thing we talked about on the preview shows late last week. And then also, it would have been Thursday, Friday, especially last week. We dug into some of the stats. And no, the Timberwolves don't run a ton in transition. Minnesota was still bottom 10 in pace this year. Like, they just weren't a team that ran a ton. However, they run a fair amount. And I should say also, they're dead last in running off of defensive rebounds. 30th in the NBA, according to Clean the Glass, in running off of defensive rebounds. But they're kind of middle of the pack in running off of transition, running off of steals, running in transition off of steals that they generate, opponent turnovers. And they're actually 13th in transition points added per 100 plays in the NBA. So top half of the league, and how effective they are with running off of steals. And the Lakers are a bad transition defense. They've been bottom third of the league all year, and they're not better with Luka Doncic, I can tell you that much. So if Minnesota's opportunistic, it can steal. Like, I'm not calling for the Wolves to push the pace, play at a breakneck speed and go against everything they've done all season and really for the last 2 years. But if they could pick their spots, not every matchup is the same. For the same reason why last year in the playoffs, the Timberwolves said, let's corner crash like crazy against Phoenix. We have the size advantage. We think we can do this. They don't guard the corners very well, period. We should have free runners at the rim from the corners. And Jaden was awesome. He averaged like 2.5 offensive rebounds a game against Phoenix last year. That's not the way the Wolves always play, although now offensive rebounding is a bigger part of their strategy than it was last year. But in this particular matchup, off of turnovers, when given the opportunity, Minnesota should be able to run and hurt the Lakers. The Lakers aren't going to play as hard, or at least they didn't in game one, and they're not as athletic, and they're not all that big. They're also not good at guarding the three-point line, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So the Timberwolves should always, over the course of this series, have this size and athleticism advantage. The ability to run in transition should always be there. A couple more things I want to hit that are sustainable. Then we'll talk about potential Lakers adjustments. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel, our title sponsors at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting extremely easy. It might just be picking your favorite team, which hopefully is the Timberwolves if you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you're diving into player props. Again, the Wolves, as of right now, they're actually 5.5 point underdogs. I said 4.5 earlier. They're 5.5 point underdogs against the Lakers. By the way, I took Timberwolves money line on Saturday night for game one. That was a great pick. I think I take the Timberwolves and the points in this one. I think it's going to be a close game, really kind of a coin flip in game two. The Lakers they must play harder, right? Like they're going to have to play harder. I wouldn't mind taking Timberwolves plus 5.5. That line seems a little high to me in this one, even if the Lakers are to be favored, especially if the Wolves are favored for the series. I don't know. Wolves plus 5.5. I like that. You could also go prop bets from 3-pointers to steals to assists and more. And plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, so we've hit on a couple things that should be sustainable for the Wolves. Transition's a big one, and then another one would be offensive rebounding. Again, I know the box score says Lakers at 13 offensive rebounds, but like five of them were in garbage time. I think that it was actually in the stretch. You take out the very first part of the first quarter and take out garbage time, and the Wolves out offensive rebound LA like 11-3 in this game. I'm not exaggerating. Garbage time was literally 5 rebounds. So even if you want to count the ones in the first quarter, they out offensive rebounded them 11-8. This is another area we talked about last week that I feel like is sustainable for the series for Minnesota. Is LA is not a great defensive rebounding team. And while the Wolves for the season, were a good offensive rebounding team, they were great at turning offensive rebounds into points. We talked about this on the crossover with the Kamenetsky brothers of Locked On Lakers last Thursday. The Wolves are 6th in points per miss on offensive rebounds, according to Clean the Glass. So there's lots of opportunity there. And again, I go back to size and athleticism. Like the non-Jackson Hayes lineups just have no size. With or without Jack, like you want to go Dorian Finney-Smith at the 5, you go to Rui Hachimura at the 5. No matter who the Wolves have at the 5, it's going to be Nas or it's going to be Rudy, and they should have the advantage in terms of size. They also should have the advantage on the perimeter. Like these dudes on the Lakers are not necessarily crashing hard. Those are real opportunities for Minnesota to get rebounds and either get putbacks, get fouled, or what they did quite a bit of in this game was kickouts for threes. We saw Ant do that off an offensive rebound his own miss and kick it out for a Nas 3. We saw a kick out for a Dante, I think 3 that he actually missed. We saw plenty of these opportunities for Minnesota. They're still going to be there as the series wears on. That's something the Wolves should have at their disposal that they should be able to bank on as long as they keep playing hard, because the Lakers just aren't a great defensive rebounding team. And then the other thing I want to hit in terms of what's sustainable for the Wolves, the last thing on this side of the show, these categories, would be the decision-making. And this one does hinge a little bit on what the Lakers choose to do with their scheme. And we'll talk about that in a moment. This will be our segue into the potential LA adjustment portion of the show. I think if the Timberwolves, and this is mostly Anthony Edwards. It's not only Anthony Edwards, but Ant oftentimes has the ball at the point of attack for Minnesota. His decision-making was on point in this game. And I talked about it a little bit on Monday, and I admitted that I was a bit off base on X when I posted on Saturday on Twitter that that Anthony Edwards, I lumped him in with Randle and Gobert as having somewhere between pedestrian bad games. And actually on a rewatch, Ant's decision-making was nearly perfect, nearly flawless. It was rapid. It really was on point. Like he was making the right read almost every time. Like, hey, can I turn the corner here? Should I pull up? Should I drive and kick? Should I pass it and essentially reset? Right? There was the 3 he hit over Luka that I believe gave us that fantastic Spider-Man at Luka and Luka looking back at him in front of the Wolves bench photo that's been making the rounds from both sides of the floor. It's just such a good photo. That was Ant passing. I don't even remember who he passed it to. He got off the ball, passed it, got it right back, and got into his step back from the left just above the break where he loves to shoot the ball. He did that another time in the first half, and it actually led to a drive for Ant. Like knowing him getting off the ball and then knowing he's going to get it back. And in this case, the Luka 3-point example, the 3-point over Luka example, he got back right away. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes it swings to the other side and comes back to him, but that's how you get rid of the ball pressure. That's how you get rid of occasionally the 2 on the ball, which Lakers don't like to do, and they didn't really do it at all in this game. And that's a potential adjustment for the Lakers. But real quick to close out the Wolves side of the coin here, expect the Lakers to give Minnesota and give Ant specifically different looks defensively, but that shouldn't necessarily mean that the processing, the decision making can't happen quickly. And I think that needs to be like that. It was such a big key to the Wolves getting as many open threes as they did in this game. And I know they didn't shoot a ton of free throws, but they got a lot of open threes by the quick decision making. And that's something that the Lakers are going to try to muck up a little bit here moving forward, and something the Wolves need to, and specifically Ant, need to continue to do. Which brings us to something that I think the Lakers will do. I do think the Lakers, as much as they don't like to do it, are going to have to try putting two on the ball when Ant has the ball. Maybe not all the time. And if I were LA, if I were JJ Redick, I would mix it up. I would blitz him occasionally, but not all the time. Like maybe don't do it right away to start game two. Maybe just try to be physical, maybe switch. There were spans in the game on Saturday in game one where the Lakers just didn't switch at all. And then there were other times where like clearly they wanted to try and switch. Maybe they just switch everything initially to start the game. And then they occasionally maybe they send a late blitz, or maybe they try to trap Ant every now and again when he crosses the timeline. Like mix up the coverages a little bit if you're LA to try and make Ant to rush his decision-making. So it's not simply a quick decision. It's a rash decision. It's a rushed decision. It's a too rapid decision is what you're trying to force if you're the Lakers. Now, if you put two on the ball too quickly and it's not a true trap, then he's just going to get it back and he's going to score over one guy. So it has to be timely. It has to be thought out. It has to be schemed properly for the Lakers. And the other thing is you can't, as soon as you do that, now you've kind of created the counter for Minnesota, obviously, then if you're the Lakers, you've created the same problem that you were already having, which is if you've got two on the ball, where are your other three defenders? Well, they're trying to guard four guys, which means they're probably packed a little bit toward the paint, but they're going to have to flare out to the corners a little bit, right? And two passes away is, of course, the least dangerous place to be. Occasionally, Ant will try a skip pass. In fact, he tried one early in the game that went out of bounds. Then Randle did it on the next possession, and it was discombobulated for Minnesota. We've seen Ant try and force skip passes when there's two on the ball, and you can maybe force him into that if you're LA. If you're Minnesota, if you're Ant, it's get rid of the ball immediately and then go and get it back. And then you can get the ball going downhill. You could just, if you get off the ball right away, you can go and get it, effectively dribble handoff, and then get to the bucket. And the Lakers are behind the play then. But it has to be a quick decision. And if you're the Lakers, you can't double too quickly. It has to be timed a little bit more intelligently. I think that's a really clear counter for the Lakers, and I think that they messed up by not mixing that in. I understand it. The Wolves didn't like to put two on Luka. They didn't, obviously, I don't know that I would do it in this series, but they didn't do it at all last year against Dallas when they should have, and that was a major problem. I think in a series like this, you have to try some of those things if you're LA. That's the primary defensive adjustment if you're the Lakers. And then the other thing would be, I guess I'd lump this in with, point one on the Wolves being sustainable, playing hard. The Lakers just like, how many threes were uncontested? I mean, I didn't chart the whole thing, but it had to have been 2/3 to 3/4 of threes that were uncontested, or at least open, if not wide open, for Minnesota. Part of that is because they packed the paint. We talked about this on yesterday's show. They were playing the gaps, and so essentially, Ant was having 1.5 defenders everywhere. Well, guess what? He had 9 assists and only 1 turnover because he was moving the ball quickly. He was being decisive. And when you're packing the paint to that extent, and when you have LeBron guarding Randle in the post, and whoever, I don't remember who it was, decided, I better double. I better dig at this post-up opportunity. And Randle was like, I'll just throw it to Nas for a wide open corner three because you guys are so concerned with me backing down LeBron from 12 feet, whereas Nas, who's a 40% plus 3-point shooter, is just going to knock down this wide open jumper. Like if the Lakers keep doing that, the one thing they can do to maybe save themselves a little would be to actually close out aggressively. And that's an area the Wolves are far superior to the Lakers. I mean, Minnesota is very good at contesting 3-point shots. There's a reason that opponent 3-point percentage has been really low. In other words, good for Minnesota. Like opponents do not shoot threes well against Minnesota last year or this year. That's just an area the Wolves have done great with. When Minnesota is on defense, opponents are Minnesota's 6th in opponent 3-point percentage. They only shoot 35.8% on the season against Minnesota from deep. And last year, I believe I've got last year's number. Yeah, last year they were 5th, under 36%. So they've been top 6 last year and this year with opponent 3-point percentage. And people think of Minnesota and Rudy Gobert as a rim protector, but guess what? They know how to close out to the 3-point line, and they were awesome with at that against the Lakers in this game when the Lakers tried to drive and kick, or the Lakers just tried to face up and shoot threes. And on the flip side, LA did not do a good job of contesting 3-point attempts from Minnesota. I want to hit on one other thing that I think the Lakers should do. This is on the offensive side of the ball that I think the Lakers will do and potentially adjust that Minnesota will have to counter adjust to. Look at that here next. All right. Something I talked about on Monday's show that I want to bring up again is I thought the Lakers were generally I could just say they were generally very lazy, just full stop and stop there. But specifically, they were lazy when it came to setting screens in this game. I thought that the Lakers put themselves in a tough spot by how poorly they were setting screens against Minnesota. And the Wolves did a really good job at not allowing themselves to get hung up on screens. And I talked at length about Jaden yesterday. And I meant to talk more about him today. And in fact, we could do it now. One of the things I thought he did extremely well was he stayed glued to Luka regardless of what the Lakers did. He wasn't allowing himself to get picked off easily. He was fighting through contact. He was using his length to bother Luka. And the Wolves clearly said, look, Luka is going to hit some step backs on us, just like he did against Rudy, that, we can never unsee from game 2 of last year's playoffs because the world won't let us unsee it, or won't let us forget it. But overall, if Luka wants to, that was a close late game situation, isolation, down to fine. That's the shot he wants to take. That's the shot he's going to take, and he might make it because he's Luka Doncic. But over the course of the game, if he's going to shoot step back threes one-on-one like that against Rudy or Jaden or whoever, well, those guys are both pretty long. It can bother him and at least contest the shot and make it more difficult. And the Wolves clearly were okay with living with Luka shooting those hero shots. And if he makes 1 in 3 or 1 in 4, fine. Over the course of the game, that's not going to kill you. That's not going to be what beats you. And sure enough, Luka had 37 points on 22 shots, which you would think this was a close game and possibly a Laker win. But guess what? The Wolves won by 22 because the Wolves said, look, if Luka wants to take these shots and maybe make these shots, fine. But we're not going to let him become a dynamite playmaker for others. We're not going to let him get into the paint and get to the line, although he did shoot 9 free throws in this game. We're going to at least make him work. And with everybody else, we're going to have late switches and we're going to recover and we're going to allow Rudy to still guard the rim. And there you get an Austin Reeves 5 of 13. I think he only had 2 points outside of that little run, late third quarter or something from Austin Reeves and the Lakers. I think he had 14 points quickly. And then besides that, he had 1 bucket in the game. And LeBron, LeBron had 19 points. It took him 18 shots to get there. LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves together combined for 11 turnovers and only 7 assists in this game. They scored. Well, nobody else besides those 3 scored more than 9 points. And again, they combined for 11 turnovers and 7 assists. That's something the Wolves can live with. And just showing Luka length, ideally in the form of Jaden McDaniels. Nickeil can do it. We saw Julius Randle give him physicality. I think the Wolves' calculation was length over physicality because the dude's going to shoot the ball, whether he's trying to get to the basket or shoot threes. We'd generally rather him try and shoot over length because if he's shooting jumpers over length, he's not getting to the free throw line and he's not creating for others. If he's playing against physicality, he might end up creating for others and he probably will get to the free throw line. And Julius Randle mixed it up and had some great possessions himself guarding Luka one-on-one. But I think starting with the length of Jaden and mixing in length of Nickeil and Ant when needed is smart. And then allowing Julius Randle to then take some possessions to be physical with Luka Doncic is also smart. I would expect the Lakers to try and set more screens. And the other thing they might try and do a little or more screens, but also more physical screens. Then the other thing would be, might we see them try and post up a little bit more? The Wolves don't have a great defense when it comes to defending the post. Rudy's a phenomenal defender. He's not a great post defender, but I take that back. He's a very good post defender. But we saw him struggle against, obviously, who doesn't struggle against Nikola Jokic in the post like he did last year. I think for the Lakers, though, it's not posting Rudy up. It's especially when Rudy's off the floor, it's LeBron posting up Nas. Or it's maybe it's probably not Rui Hachimura. We saw him try and post up Mike Conley. That didn't go well. Maybe it's Luka posting up Nickeil. But when they have the matchup, expect the Lakers to try maybe doing a little bit more of that, which then can create those kickouts for open three-point opportunities, maybe some lobs, but probably not because Jackson Hayes is the only real lob threat, which goes back to a point I made Monday. I think the lack of a vertical threat from the Lakers is really going to hurt them. And that goes along with the size and athleticism point I made at the top of the show today. I just think that the Lakers don't have that right combination like the Mavs team last year in the playoffs, or, some of the other, like a Detroit Pistons team this year, like a team that has a guy like a Durin who can really stretch the floor and if you don't truly protect the rim, and we saw that happen to the Knicks against the Pistons a little bit in their loss in game 2 on Monday night, that could be really difficult here moving forward in the series. All right. I think the primary adjustments we need to look out for is 2 on the ball for Ant. I think on Minnesota's side, I don't think you adjust much. I just think you have to be prepared for that adjustment from the Lakers. And I think what the Wolves did with Mike Conley defensively was great. I think Chris Finch coached really a masterclass in game 1. I'll be very curious to see, the playoffs are all about coaches making adjustments in game and from game to game, and also counter adjustments. How do the Wolves react to what JJ Redick cooks up? And what does JJ Redick cook up? We talked on Monday's show about how he clearly didn't feel like he was outcoached in game 1, but I thought it was pretty obvious he was. What does the rookie head coach do game 1 to game 2, and how does Chris Finch respond to that? Of course, after the game on Tuesday night, we'll have the live postcast over at Locked On Sports Minnesota, and that's going to be our guys Luke and Jack. Jack is on site at the arena there in Los Angeles, so Jack will be joining from the arena, from the belly of the beast, with Luke Inman live immediately following the game Tuesday night. It's a late game, 9 p.m. Central. And then I'll be there. I won't be on the postcast, but I'll have this show, the postgame pod, posted late overnight between Tuesday and Wednesday as well. So if you time it right, you listen to the live postcast with those guys, and then you'll hear this show immediately following early in the morning on Wednesday as well. And then, of course, shows the rest of the week. We'll get you ready for Friday night at Target Center. That's all we got for you on today's show, though. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder about the Locked On Wolves daily newsletter. Of course, we're in the playoffs now. Locked On Wolves has you covered every single step of the way. Subscribe to Locked On Wolves. Not just the podcast, but also the podcast newsletter for expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. As a subscriber, you'll be entered to win one of these 3 amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Simply subscribe between April 7th, which already happened. So between right now and April 30th, the end of the month, you got 8 days to do so to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss a moment of the Wolves championship run during the Locked On Wolves newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking the link in the description. Reminder, the postcast is live on Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube tonight, immediately following the game, and then the audio will be right here on the Locked On Wolves audio feed, wherever you listen to podcasts, followed by my postgame pod that will post early on Wednesday. Of course, Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.